Tamara barely slept that night. Her mind was a storm of conflicting emotions: fear, anger, confusion, and an unignorable awareness of Jesu's constant presence. Even though he hadn't crossed the line, even though he had respected her space, the weight of his protective gaze lingered like a shadow across the room. She woke to the soft hum of the air conditioner and the muted glow of the city lights. The safe house was silent, eerily so, and for a moment she thought she might be imagining things. Then she noticed it. A faint creak in the hallway, the subtle sound of someone moving outside the door. Her heart thumped violently in her chest. She froze, unsure whether to scream or stay quiet. Every cell in her body screamed danger, and yet she didn't feel panic in the usual way. It was a sharp, cold edge, fear mixed with an adrenaline she hadn't felt since arriving in Korea. Before she could react, a familiar, calm voice spoke from outside the door. "Tamara, don't be afraid." Her stomach dropped. Jesu's voice. She opened the door just a crack, peeking out. His silhouette was there, framed by the dim light of the hallway. He was still in his black suit, perfectly tailored, his presence commanding, his expression unreadable. "I heard something," she whispered, voice trembling. "You're safe," he said softly, placing a finger on his lips. "I'm right here." Even though she knew he hadn't slept outside the door for the thrill of it, the sheer intensity of his vigilance made her chest tighten. She wanted to be frustrated with him, to push him away, to assert that she didn't need protection. But the truth was, she felt safer knowing he was there. Her phone buzzed violently. A message flashed. "Tamara Johnson, do not leave your room. Someone is asking about you." Her heart froze. The sender was unknown. Jesu's eyes darkened instantly. Calm transformed into sharp, controlled alertness. Without a word, he moved beside her, scanning the hallway as if he could sense the threat before it even arrived. "Who sent it?" she whispered. "I don't know yet," he said, his voice low, almost a growl. "But someone is watching. Someone wants you, and they're not interested in asking politely." Her stomach knotted. The words hit like ice. She had known this life wasn't safe, but now danger wasn't an abstract concept. It was real, immediate. Her baby and she were at risk. And the man who had been so distant the night before was now the only one between her and the unknown threat. Jesu's hand brushed hers, not as a gesture of intimacy, but as a quiet claim, a silent assurance. "Stay close to me. Do exactly what I say." Tamara felt a mixture of frustration and relief. He wasn't crossing boundaries. He wasn't claiming her body. Yet every subtle touch, every controlled command, made her feel tethered to him in a way that was both maddening and comforting. He instructed her to stay inside the room while he checked the perimeter. The sound of his movements, the faint click of the door locking behind him, made her realize she had never felt so exposed and so protected at the same time. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. Her breathing was shallow. Every creak, every distant sound made her flinch. But through it all, she knew. He was outside, watching, guarding, ensuring that no harm would come to her or the child she carried. Her phone rang again. "Dr. Han." "Ms. Tamara, someone came to the hospital asking questions about your case," the doctor stammered. "They knew things I shouldn't have told anyone." Tamara's heart raced. She turned to the door, imagining Jesu's face, his eyes narrowing with controlled fury. "I'll handle it," he said from outside, his voice calm yet lethal. "Stay here. Do not move." For the first time, Tamara noticed a slight tension in Jesu's posture. His shoulders were rigid, his jaw tight, and his normally calm eyes were sharp, scanning, calculating. She realized how much he must care for her, for the baby, to allow himself to appear vulnerable even slightly. It was an unexpected and confusing feeling. She had always admired his control, his power, his dominance. But seeing him for just a moment as a man concerned, almost afraid for the safety of someone he hadn't touched, shook something inside her. Minutes later, Jesu returned. The tension in the air was palpable. He walked in slowly, eyes scanning her carefully before letting himself relax. "They know," he said quietly, almost a whisper. "Someone connected to the hospital is trying to track you. They want information about the child." Tamara's breath caught. "The child?" she whispered. "Yes," he said, his gaze dropping to her stomach. "No one is getting near you. Not while I'm still breathing." She felt her chest tighten. The fear, the adrenaline, the strange comfort all mixed together into a knot she couldn't untangle. He wasn't just a mafia boss. He wasn't just the father of her child. He was the one person who could control this chaos, and he had chosen to protect her. As the night settled, he placed a chair beside her bed. Not too close, not overbearing. Just enough so she could see him, know he was there. "You can sleep," he said softly. "I'll handle the rest." She wanted to argue, to insist she didn't need a protector. But the exhaustion, the weight of the pregnancy, and the lingering fear from the day made her nod silently. And for the first time, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't entirely alone in this. Her phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. This time, a message. "We're coming for her. And for the baby." Tamara's heart stopped. The reality of her situation. The baby, the danger, Jesu's relentless protection, hit her fully. She realized she was caught in a world she couldn't escape, tied to a man she barely knew but whose presence had become her only shield. Jesu's voice broke through the panic. "Tamara, stay calm. I'll fix everything." And as she nodded, trembling, she knew everything had changed forever. Tamara had never felt fear so sharp, so suffocating, that it pulsed through every vein in her body. The safe house, which had felt like a fortress the night before, now seemed too fragile, too small to hold her and the child growing inside her. Every creak, every whisper of wind against the walls made her flinch. She sat on the edge of the bed, hands pressed to her stomach, trying to steady her racing heart. She could still feel Jesu's presence from the night before. The way he had stayed outside her door, silent but alert, protecting her without ever overstepping boundaries. That thought brought a strange mixture of warmth and frustration. She didn't want to feel safe because of him, but she couldn't help it. Her phone buzzed again, breaking her thoughts. She froze, recognizing the unknown number. Her fingers trembled as she read the message. "We're almost there." Panic coiled tightly in her chest. She looked toward the door instinctively, half expecting someone to appear. But before she could react, a calm, low voice cut through the tension. "Tamara, stay calm. Do exactly as I say." Jesu stepped into the room, his presence immediately filling the space with authority. He didn't approach too close, he never did. But the intensity in his gaze was enough to silence her fears for a moment. Tamara's breath caught. They're coming?" "Yes," Jesu said, voice low, steady. "But they won't get near you. Not while I'm breathing." He moved to the door and pressed a hand against it, feeling for vibrations, listening for movement outside. Then he whispered, "They're skilled. They won't make a sound until it's too late. I need you to stay here, locked. Do not open the door for anyone." She nodded, swallowing hard. The reality of her situation hit her like a wave. She wasn't just pregnant. She was a target. And the only person who could protect her was a man she barely knew. A man who had once terrified her with his presence, but now filled her with a strange sense of security. Suddenly, the faint sound of a lock clicking echoed in the hallway. Tamara's heart froze. She pressed herself to the floor, hands over her stomach, trying to remain invisible. Jesu moved like a shadow, silent, lethal. He was at the door in an instant, listening, calculating. A muffled voice tried to speak through the door. A demand, a threat, an attempt at intimidation. "They're professionals," Jesu whispered to her, barely moving his lips. "Stay down. Don't make a sound. Trust me." The tension was suffocating. Every second stretched, every heartbeat loud enough to echo in her ears. She could hear the faint scuffle of movement outside, the whisper of fabric against walls, the subtle creak of footsteps. Then Jesu's voice cut through again, sharp and commanding. "Go away, now, or leave the hospital files behind." A pause, the threat, silence, and then retreat. The intruders knew he would outmatch them. Tamara remained on the floor, trembling, long after the sounds had faded. She felt numb, yet alive in a way that terrified her. She looked at Jesu, who had returned to her side, his expression calm but unreadable. You saved me, she whispered. Her voice cracked. I didn't save you, he corrected softly. I protected what belongs to me. She froze. The words hit her in a way that made her stomach twist. She didn't belong to him, yet the baby did. And somehow that bond felt more real, more permanent than anything she had ever known. The adrenaline slowly faded, leaving Tamara shaking, exhausted, and emotionally raw. Jisoo moved a chair closer to her, sitting nearby, giving her space but not leaving her entirely. You can rest, he said quietly. I'll handle everything outside. She wanted to argue, to insist she didn't need him, but the exhaustion of the day, the pregnancy, the fear, it all overwhelmed her. She nodded silently, letting herself lean back against the wall, and for a brief moment, she allowed herself to relax. As she rested, she couldn't help but notice the small things about him. The way his eyes softened when he watched her, the subtle care in the way he kept watch, the controlled power that radiated from him even in moments of calm. Her emotions twisted in a confusing knot. She hated him for terrifying her. She resented him for making her feel safe. And yet, she couldn't deny the warmth that spread through her chest whenever he was near. She pressed a hand to her stomach. Her baby, her life, all of it tied to this man who both frightened and fascinated her. Suddenly, her phone buzzed again. Another message from an unknown number. We're not done. We'll come back. You can't hide forever. Tamara's chest tightened. The reality of her situation. The danger, the pregnancy, Jisoo's relentless protection, hit her fully. She realized that her life was now a delicate balance of fear, desire, and trust in a man she barely understood but couldn't escape. Jisoo's voice cut through the panic. Tamara, do not worry, they're just trying to get you scared. Her eyes met his. He wasn't just a man. He wasn't just the father of her child. He was her shield, her danger, her world, and the only one who could navigate the chaos closing in around them. And she knew, deep down, that the storm outside the door was only the beginning. The city lights of Seoul stretched endlessly below them as Tamara stared out the sleek black SUV's window. The buildings glimmered like a sea of stars, but she barely noticed. Her thoughts were tangled, fear, relief, and that confusing warmth whenever Jisoo's presence loomed nearby. He didn't speak much on the ride, only instructions. Keep your seatbelt on, he said, and do not look out of the window too long. We don't want to be seen. Tamara nodded, gripping her handbag tightly in her lap. Her pulse still raced from the events of the past week. The hospital incident, the threatening messages, the sudden awareness that she carried his child. Every moment had been a whirlwind, and yet, paradoxically, she felt calmer knowing Jisoo was in control. When the car finally stopped, they were on the top floor of a modern skyscraper. The penthouse stretched before her. Floor-to-ceiling windows, soft ambient lighting, and the faint scent of fresh flowers in the air. It was serene, luxurious, almost unreal. Welcome to my house, Jisoo said simply, his voice calm yet commanding. Tamara stepped out of the car, eyes wide. She had seen luxury before, but this felt untouchable, untethered from the world. It was a safe haven, and for the first time since the hospital incident, she felt the tight knot of panic in her chest loosen slightly. Jisoo guided her inside, placing a gentle hand near her elbow. Not touching, not intrusive, but protective. Every movement he made was deliberate, calculated, and respectful. He showed her to her bedroom. Soft bedding, calming lighting, everything she could need. I don't need all this, she whispered, overwhelmed. You do, he said softly. For now, this is where you stay, where you're more safe. Jisoo moved around the penthouse like a shadow, checking locks, security cameras, and encrypted messages on his phone. Tamara watched him, captivated by the way he carried authority effortlessly. He wasn't loud or brash. He didn't need to be. Danger bowed to his presence, as if the city itself respected him. After a few minutes, he turned to her. You should sleep. Tamara hesitated, unsure how to respond. She wanted to assert her independence, to tell him she didn't need protection. But the exhaustion from the past few days made her nod silently. For now, she would let herself be cared for. Later, she caught glimpses of Jisoo on his phone. He made calls, sent messages, his tone low, commanding, and utterly terrifying. She saw his face harden, jaw tightening, eyes darkening as he dealt with the threats from those who had tried to track her at the hospital. She didn't understand the details, but she saw the results. Security measures upgraded, all contacts traced, enemies warned off. She realized for the first time that this man, this dangerous, terrifying man, was fully capable of protecting her. Not just from strangers, but from the very world that threatened to consume her. That night, they shared a quiet meal. Jisoo didn't hover, he didn't overstep. He merely made sure she ate, that she was comfortable, that she had water nearby. Tamara felt a warmth she hadn't anticipated. She had been bracing herself for a life dominated by fear and control. Yet here was a man who could instill both authority and care. They spoke sparingly. Small talk, safe topics. She learned something about him. A memory from his childhood. A rare laugh at a sarcastic comment. For the first time, he didn't feel untouchable or untamed. He felt human. After the meal, she settled into the soft couch by the window. He stayed a few feet away, observing, silent, protective. "You don't have to stay," she whispered, her voice soft. "I'm not leaving," he replied calmly, almost tenderly. "Not while you're here. Not while you're carrying my child." Her heart skipped painfully. She swallowed hard, unsure whether to be angry or relieved. Later, as she rested, she felt a subtle movement in her belly. The baby. Her hand instinctively went there, and she gasped softly. Jisoo noticed instantly, moving closer, but still careful not to invade her space. "Feeling it?" he asked quietly. "Yes," she whispered. It's alive. I can feel it." He nodded, expression softening for just a moment. "Good. You and the baby are safe now." Tamara looked at him, the words stirring something inside her that she didn't yet understand. Relief, gratitude, a strange flutter of something warmer, but also a growing awareness of the impossible connection that tied her to this man. The rest of the night passed in a rare calm. Tamara drifted into sleep, finally allowing herself to rest fully. Jisoo sat in a chair a few feet away, his gaze occasionally flicking to the door, then back to her. He wasn't sleeping, but he didn't need to. He was content knowing she was safe, even if he couldn't express the complicated feelings swirling inside him. Outside, the city carried on, neon lights blinking, cars moving, lives unfolding. Inside the penthouse, above it all, there was a fragile sanctuary. Tamara's breathing evened. Her hand rested on her belly. She knew the world outside was dangerous. She knew her life had changed irrevocably. But for the first time since the hospital, she allowed herself to feel a small sense of peace. A faint ping from her phone broke the silence. A photo appeared, the city view from the penthouse balcony, with the caption, "Always watching over you." Tamara's chest tightened. The warmth in her heart clashed with the knowledge that this life wasn't normal, that Jisoo's world was dangerous, that their lives were tangled in ways neither of them could escape. And as she drifted to sleep again, she realized, this sanctuary, this fragile peace, might not last forever. 2 weeks later, the morning sun streamed through the blinds of her apartment, casting warm lines across the floor. Tamara woke with a familiar tightness in her chest, a mixture of anticipation and dread. Today was her first day back at work after the penthouse sanctuary, and she was determined to prove that life could continue, that she could continue, even with a secret growing inside her. She stretched, careful of the baby, and took a deep breath. Her phone buzzed once. A simple message from Jisoo, "Be safe. I'll be nearby." Her chest tightened, but she didn't reply. Not today. Today she needed space, independence, control over her life, however fragile it seemed. The office buzzed with activity. Tamara moved through her team with her usual confidence, her voice calm, authoritative. Her staff noticed subtle changes, the glow of pregnancy, the quiet strength in her eyes, but she handled every task with precision. She answered emails, managed schedules, mediated disputes, and smiled politely when coworkers admired her professionalism. But behind the composed exterior, her mind kept drifting to the penthouse, to Jisoo, to the child inside her, and the dangerous world he carried. She forced herself to focus. She was Tamara Johnson, Manager, professional, capable, and independent. Nothing else could define her. The workday ended, but as she stepped into the quiet street, she sensed him immediately. Jisoo stood across the sidewalk, leaning casually against a sleek black car, his presence impossible to ignore. "Tamara," he said softly, his voice carrying both warmth and something darker, more intimate. She froze. Her heart raced. She wanted to run, to hide, to escape the magnetism of a man she shouldn't feel anything for. Yet here he was, calm, collected, protective, and impossible to ignore. "Don't," she said, her voice shaking. "Don't come near me." He raised a brow but didn't step closer. "I'm not going to hurt you. You don't understand," she snapped, stepping back instinctively. I can't be around you. I won't. It's too much. It's dangerous. For the baby, for me. I can't live like this. Under your shadow, your world, your protection." Her words came out in a rush, harsh and trembling. She swallowed, fighting tears, but they came anyway. Jisoo's expression softened slightly, but there was a quiet, heartbreaking weight in his eyes. "Tamara," he said gently, "I'm not leaving. Not until I know you're safe. I don't want your protection," she cried, her voice breaking. I want my life back. My choices. My space. I can't live in your world." He looked at her, silent for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "I understand." The words were calm, but the tension between them was electric. He stepped back, giving her the distance she demanded. Yet in that very gesture, she felt the pull she had fought so hard to resist. Tamara's tears flowed freely now. She pressed a hand to her stomach, feeling the baby stir, and whispered, I need to do this alone. I have to live my life for both of us." Jisoo's voice was low, almost a whisper, carrying the weight of a promise he couldn't make. "If this is what you need, I'll step back. But know this, no one will ever harm you. Not ever. I'll watch over you, even if I'm not there." Her chest tightened at his words. There was love in them. Unspoken, quiet, impossible to act on. But there was also respect. And that was enough. She took a deep breath and whispered, "Goodbye, Jisoo." He didn't argue. He didn't beg. He simply nodded, his eyes dark, protective, and haunted. "Goodbye, Tamara." Tamara turned and walked down the street, each step heavy, each heartbeat loud. She glanced back once and saw him standing there, still watching, still silent. The city felt different now, sharper, colder, but somehow brighter too. She had made a choice. She had taken control. And even though her heart ached, even though the bond between them remained unbroken and complicated, she felt a strange sense of peace. She would protect herself. She would raise her child. She would live. But in the back of her mind, she knew one undeniable truth. Jisoo's shadow would never leave her. Not completely. Not ever. That night, Tamara returned to her apartment. The city lights flickered through the window as she prepared a simple meal. She rested, her hand on her belly, feeling the baby move again. She whispered softly, a mixture of resolve and longing, "We'll be okay, just the two of us." Outside, somewhere far away, Jisoo's gaze lingered on her building. He didn't enter, he didn't knock, but his heart was tethered to hers, invisible threads crossing the distance between them. They had cut ties officially, but their connection, forged through danger, care, and life itself, remained unbroken. It was sweet in its protection, bitter in its separation, and emotional in its inevitability. Months passed. Tamara gave birth to a healthy baby boy named Ethan, a symbol of both her courage and her bond with Jisoo. Jisoo visited only occasionally, discreetly, never intruding on her life, yet always present enough to see his child grow. They communicated through texts, calls, and carefully arranged visits, coordinated around Tamara's schedule and her comfort. During visits, Jisoo was gentle and patient, teaching Ethan small things, holding him carefully, always respectful of Tamara's space. Tamara watched, initially tense, but gradually felt the warmth of a man who had transformed from a shadowy protector to a reliable co-parent. "You're amazing," Jisoo said quietly one afternoon, watching Ethan take his first steps. Tamara smiled softly, feeling a bittersweet ache. He's lucky, she replied. And so are you, in a way. You have him in your life, even if, in your own way. Their interactions were never romantic anymore. They didn't hold hands or kiss. But there was love in the care, connection in the protection, and bond in the shared responsibility of raising their child. Tamara sat by the window one evening, Ethan asleep in her arms. The city lights twinkled, just like the night she had first arrived in Korea. Overwhelmed, scared, and alone. Now she was strong, independent, and loved in her own way with her child at the center of her universe. Jisoo's presence lingered in small ways. A text, a visit, a watchful eye, reminding her that not all bonds are romantic to be meaningful. She whispered softly, touching Ethan's tiny hand, "We'll be okay. You and I will make it." And for the first time in months, she truly believed it. Her life had changed forever. It was bittersweet. Yes. Love unfulfilled, distance maintained, but life thriving, hearts connected, and a child to unite them. A future uncertain yet safe. And for Tamara, that was enough.
Hello besties, in this week's story you learn that life doesn't always go as planned and mistakes can change your world in ways you never expected. But strength, faith and the courage to make your own choices can help you survive even the most impossible situations. Love, forgiveness and responsibility often grow from the hardest trials. Thank you so much for watching. Kindly like, subscribe and share.